Welcome into this edition of LCPioneers.com Live, presented by PioStream. We are with you twice per week now, shifting into competition. So we're now 2 shows per week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, starting at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. You can find us most easily by going to lcpioneers.com/live as we broadcast through Facebook Live to keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, members from the Lewis and Clark College community, and our alumni base as well. Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We are the Pioneers based out of Portland, Oregon, and a member of the NCAA Division III level. Over 430 institutions competing at that level, and a chance for our student athletes in the 9-team Northwest Conference made up of institutions from throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington to compete on a national stage with 19 intercollegiate athletics programs. As we've shifted to this twice per week format, we have had the ability and opportunity to talk to 2 guests per show. So coming up in just a little bit, we'll have Kendall Arlasky, who is one of the student co-chairs of the upcoming 40th Annual Gender Studies Symposium. Symposia on the Lewis and Clark College campus is an amazing opportunity for our student athletes and students alike. And so I always like to have an opportunity through the show to reach out to those opportunities that might impact student athletes, whether they're an attendee or an organizer or someone who's in one of those academic programs, right? And share more of that with you. So we'll talk to Kendall coming up about that event, which happens later this month. And then after Kendall's interview, we'll talk to the head coach of Lewis and Clark baseball, Matt Kosderka, as the baseball team gets set to start competing here shortly, as 16 of our 19 teams will likely be in some sort of competition over the course of spring 2021 semester. We invite you to get in touch with the show. If you have any questions, you want to ask a question, maybe you have a suggestion for a future guest, we would love to have that as well. You can always reach out to us in the Facebook Live comments. You can also email us anytime, sports@lclark.edu. That's a great way to reach out to us as well. We are also on Instagram and Twitter. LC Pioneers is our handle on both of those platforms. And we want to send another big congratulations out to Alyssa Abe, sophomore pitcher for Lewis and Clark softball, named Northwest Conference Softball Pitching Student Athlete of the Week. The first one-hit performance by any Lewis and Clark pitcher since 2013. It led Lewis and Clark to an 8-0 win last Saturday. Softball will be in action again against Willamette here shortly. And we have a big amount of competition on the schedule for this upcoming weekend, including home volleyball tonight. It is the kickoff of the 2020-21 schedule for Lewis and Clark volleyball. You can find more information about Lewis and Clark volleyball and the schedule on our website, lcpioneers.com. Women's golf got underway last week. I mentioned softball already. Women's soccer last night, a 4-1 loss at George Fox. Maddie Pastoris gets her first ever collegiate goal, so a big moment there for the sophomore defender. And we also have updates pertaining to athletics in terms of COVID-19 specific information, whether that's coming from the NCAA, the Northwest Conference, or elsewhere. We have that link on our website, lcpioneers.com/COVID. You can find out more on our website. And then all of our past shows available to watch on demand. Should you miss any of our past shows, you can find it on our YouTube page, youtube.com/lcpios. All right, let's bring in our guest for today, the first of our guests for today. Student co-chair of the Gender Studies Symposium coming up, Kendall Arlasky, joins us on lcpioneers.com live. Kendall, thanks for making time for us today. Excited to talk to you about this symposium. And I bring this up all the time, but that's what's been one of my favorite parts of the show, is the chance to reach out to other areas of campus where our student athletes may make a contribution or consider making a contribution. But let's start with the overview of what this event is. Give us what the symposium will look like in 2021.
Yeah, Ryan, thank you for having me. This year we have our 40th Annual Gender Studies Symposium. Our theme is Lack and Absence. So we're focusing on questions surrounding who is missing from the conversation around gender and sexuality studies, and how can we illuminate those voices. The symposium will be happening next week over 3 days, from Wednesday, March 10th to Friday, March 12th. And we will be featuring 2 keynote speakers. On Wednesday, we will have Carmen Maria Machado, who's a writer in residence at Penn. And then on Thursday, we will have anthropologist and professor of gender and sexuality studies, Jennifer C. Nash. And on Friday, we get to spotlight LC's spring theater production, The Secretaries. And over the course of the 3 days, we will have various workshops, panels with presentations from students in the LC community and in the greater Pacific Northwest community, as well as nationwide. And yeah, so it's a really exciting event. We're super excited to be able to have a virtual symposium this year.
Well, and then you say that word virtual, right? So this is opportunity with the pandemic, try to make the best of a bad situation, right? And we've heard this from some other programs with Lewis and Clark Athletics, and then other symposia too, to have that reach go a little bit beyond just the Lewis and Clark College campus. Describe as a digital symposium as well. What some of the things that people need to do in order to register, but certainly then how they can get involved with the event.
Yeah, definitely. We're very lucky to be building off the legacy of the Ray Warren Symposium, which was also virtual this year in the fall. And there are many great opportunities for a virtual symposium. Like you mentioned, people will be able to attend from all over the country and be able to see their family or friends present, which is something that hasn't been able to happen before. And then we also will be featuring a digital art gallery, which is super exciting, and that'll be listed on the website. But it is important to note that all events require pre-registration. It's free, it's open to the public. You just need it in order to get the Zoom link. And when you visit our schedule, which is on our website, you will see the links in order to pre-register. The only events that don't require pre-registration are the 2 keynotes, and the Zoom links for those will just be posted directly on the website. Yeah.
Kendall Arlasky is our guest, one of the student co-chairs for the upcoming Gender Studies Symposium. And you're talking about some of the logistics, the overview. Let's get into the theme, right? The theme is always important for any of the events that are put on in the symposium realm. So what is the theme for this year's event? And give us some of the significance behind it, please.
Yeah, so the theme this year is lack and absence. And it came out of a bunch of conversations that we had in the summer about what's important this year in particular to highlight. And we talked a lot about all of the what is missing from the field of gender and sexuality. And we didn't necessarily want to answer that question ourselves. My fellow co-chair and I, Phoenix Bruner, as well as our faculty advisor, Kim Brodkin, talked a lot about how we wanted this to be a question to pose to the community and then the students to identify from their own experience what is missing and what can we do to illuminate these issues. And the keynote speakers are really speaking about that. Carmen Maria Machado's talk will be about archival silence, and Jennifer C. Nash has been working a lot on projects surrounding the maternal politics of Black motherhood, and she will be speaking about women of color doulas in the emergency state in the waiting room and what that's like. And then we also talked a lot about, is presence always a thing that is desired within the frame of lack and absence? Like, is presence a framework that we should be working with? Because usually you think that lack and absence has a negative connotation, and it certainly does have the capacity to be negative. But we also were thinking about, is there a possibility for lack and absence to be something that is desirable? Is presence always desired? So these are just some of the questions that we were thinking about. And certainly in this moment of uncertainty, thinking about lack and absence might be a really important framework for this moment. So
you talked a little bit about quite a bit actually rather about the keynote and the theme and some of the events that are open beyond registration. When you look at some of the events that may not be a keynote speaker, how do those get assembled? Do you have people who are maybe in the program who want to join in and put on a workshop? How is it a thing that happens over the course of months leading into it, where you have a lot of different ideas thrown out there? Describe that process for those who have never gone through it before.
Yeah, and this is one of the primary ways that I'll see students get involved in the symposium is they submit proposals, which are we do like when they follow the theme, but they don't have to follow the theme. They're just bringing up issues in the field of gender and sexuality. That's pretty much one of the only criteria. And students will submit proposals in the fall, and then we actually have a program committee meeting, which sometimes features our bi-weekly planning committee members, which is a committee that anyone can join. But sometimes students just want to help with what will the program look like. So we'll parse through the proposals together. We'll talk about what works, what doesn't. We'll try and group them together under, we'll find threads of topics that really bring these proposals together. And while we do get a lot of papers and presentations from work being done by LC students, there are also graduate students or undergrad students in other areas. We have the opportunity to feature some Puget Sound students this year, as well as a student from, I believe, the University of Florida. So it comes from all over the nation. And then some of the panels are groups who we are just interested in working with. We have a panel called No More Stolen Sisters, which is about murdered and missing Indigenous women, which is led by the Bonneville Power Administration, American Indian Alaska Native Employee Council, and it's co-sponsored by our LC Native Student Union this year. And that was an event that was people were really excited for last year, but unfortunately, that symposium, Tensions of Possibility, was canceled because of COVID. So we feel very lucky to be able to bring that event back.
We're talking to Kendall Arlasky, a student co-chair for the upcoming Gender Studies Symposium at Lewis and Clark. I see in our Facebook Live comments, Edgar, it is good to see you too. We're excited to be back doing the show Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, talking about different events, including our head baseball coach, Matt Kosderka, coming up in just a little bit. Kendall, we do this with most of the student athletes that we have on the show, but certainly we have a chance to talk to a student co-chair of an event like this. We like the origin story, right? So give us an idea. Share with us, why did you choose to attend Lewis and Clark?
There was definitely a multitude of reasons. One of them being that I had a close friend who is now an alumni of the college, who really inspired me to come and check out Lewis and Clark. I really admired all the work that she did, and she ended up also being a co-chair, which is kind of funny. And yeah, I was also drawn by all of our international programs. I got the opportunity to study abroad in Dublin my sophomore year, which is something that I am so grateful for. And I think I also wanted a small liberal arts college because I wanted to cultivate really close relationships with my professors. And I didn't really understand what that meant until I came here and got the opportunity to do that and to see what it's like to have a mentor to support you through this experience. Yeah. That's some of the reasons.
Yeah, and you're in your senior year, right? So you've had this opportunity to go overseas, which I'm going to ask you to elaborate on in just a moment. But now you've kind of had the tail end of the pandemic happen at the tail end of your collegiate career. Elaborate on the professor aspect. When you're in classes, when you have the opportunity to come up with ideas and things that you want to pursue, whether it's part of a symposium like this or it's just something else in general, how do you find those relationships with professors helpful for being a student at Lewis and Clark?
Yeah, definitely. The number one advice I give students who are coming into LC is to attend office hours. Go and meet your professors, talk to them, ask for help. That's what they're here for. And I think also really with search out the opportunities that you want. I think it is important to ask. My junior year, I came into my advisor's office, Sarah Warren, and I asked her, how do I get involved with research in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology? And she said, well, actually, I'm conducting research if you want to get involved. So I did have an opportunity to be a student researcher with Sarah Warren last year, which was complicated by COVID, but we largely worked through that. And now I really feel like all of the relationships that I've cultivated have really allowed me to be able to have some grace during this time. It's hard to be a student right now. And I know that a lot of people are facing burnout, and to have professors who are right there alongside you and who are supporting you is really something very special.
Yeah, and I've said this to almost everybody we've had on the show too during the course of the pandemic. I admire everyone's strength and ability to be able to get through a very difficult situation because I'm well removed from college, right? And I couldn't imagine going through a lot of unprecedented events, including a pandemic, certainly over the course of it. So kudos to you. Kudos to the planning group for the symposium, right? You mentioned how last year's got canceled. So now I'd like to give you an opportunity to spotlight Phoenix, your co-student chair, and share some insight on what it's like to be in that co-chair role, right? What are some of the responsibilities that you have? Give us some insight in that regard, please.
Yeah, Phoenix and we work really well together, and that's really good for this moment because organizing a symposium takes a lot of organization, and so and we're lucky also to have Kim Brodkin, kind of steering us in the right direction. I guess the responsibilities of a co-chair are really to like work on. Sometimes it's really detail oriented, where you're figuring out how many stickers should we order, like what's the exact number, And sometimes it's really big picture, like picking out the theme. But on the day to day, it's a lot of splitting up responsibilities. Recently, we've been working on the budget for next year, but over the past couple of months, I've been heading the email accounts, and Phoenix has been doing the social media, which is especially important in this moment where we can't publicize as much in the like physical space of. I mean, we do hang up posters on campus, but we don't have as many opportunities to go into coffee shops in Portland and leave stickers and posters so that the community knows. So we really do have to rely on our social media presence to get the word out there. And Phoenix has been very active on that. So I really recommend anyone who wants updates about the symposium. We'll be doing some raffles on there as well to follow our account, LC Gender Sim, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
And I'm going to share that as well in our Facebook live chat as well, so people can get that information. I did mention a chance to elaborate on overseas study because it sounded like that was a very fun opportunity, exciting opportunity for you. Where did you go, and why did you choose to pursue that program, and what was it like?
Yeah, I went to Dublin, Ireland with Tom Shaneman, a professor of psychology here, and a bunch of my fellow students. There was a group of about 20 of us, I believe. I chose the program because I had always wanted to go to Ireland. It was actually my first time going to Europe, and the program was literature and theater based, and we got the opportunity to live in the city and also to do an internship, which was really attractive to me to have a program with a built-in internship. So I got to work at this helpline called Parent Line in Ireland, a small nonprofit which helps support parents with their issues with their children, and it was a really amazing opportunity to work so closely with that organization. And I'm an anthropology major and a gender studies minor, but for a while there I was interested in psychology, and so I got to pursue those interests through my broad program. And also, that's one of the beauties of a liberal arts education. Throughout my career at Lewis and Clark, I've gotten to take a lot of psychology classes and get close with psychology professors, even though I'm not a psychology major. And so it was really cool to be able to do a program outside of my major and kind of get to see and explore more of my interests.
Yeah, it's that experiential liberal arts education. I absolutely agree that I love about Lewis and Clark is you do get those opportunities outside of your specific academic program. And then a lot of people, like you mentioned, think they're going in for one thing and decide to leave with a degree in another, which is always a fun story as well. One more time, 40th Annual Gender Studies Symposium. What are the details? What are the easiest spots online for people to find more information about the event?
Yeah, we have a web page on the Lewis and Clark page itself. So I would just recommend, if you like looking up 40th Annual Gender Studies Symposium, Lewis and Clark, and that should take you to the page. And on there is all the information you need about pre-registration, where the Zoom links are going to be. There will be links to the virtual gallery. We're also going to have a Zoom fatigue kit for students because we know that this is a lot of online screen time during the 3 days of the symposium. So we want to be able to support the community. Yeah, and so that's where you'll find all the information, as well as contact information. If you have any concerns or questions about the symposium, you can reach out to me, Phoenix, or Kim.
All right, and we have those links in our Facebook live chat. Kendall Arlasky, thank you so much for taking the time to join us to talk about the symposium. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing how the event goes.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. A lot of fun. Good conversation to figure out all of that symposium, because we featured the Ray Warren Symposium and had a conversation on this show prior with the student co-chair. Well, there were more than two, but we had two of them on the show for that. And then we had a recap event too with another one following the event. And then we've had a professor on about the Environmental Studies Symposium. So like I've said lots on the show, I try to look at things outside of athletics at Lewis and Clark, and some of the things I've picked up on certainly have been the symposia, the Festival of Scholars. There are a lot of opportunities to showcase all the great work that our students are doing academically at Lewis and Clark. And when you look at the Building Champions philosophy for athletics, becoming champions in the classroom, competition, character, and community, those areas really are spotlighted. And so the opportunity to get involved in the symposia that are on the Lewis and Clark College campus, including we had Maddie Thomas on last week, track and field student athlete, who's part of the International Affairs Symposium as well. That's another great example of all the ways that people can get involved. Of course, if you missed this episode or you missed any of the interview with Kendall, you can always find it on our YouTube page, youtube.com/LCPios. We do have a playlist of all of our past shows dating back to the last day of March 2020. So we're actually coming up on the 1-year anniversary of LCPioneers.com live. And again, with the broadcast background, this was something that I'd always intended to do when I shifted into the Director of Athletic Communications role. But what I will tell you that the benefit in a situation where we wouldn't otherwise want to have the time to do this because of something like the pandemic is we got the show set up because we got to mid-March of last year and we're wondering, what are we going to do for content over the course of, the rest of the spring 2020 semester when competition was canceled. And so one thing I found is once you have a lot of this set up, you have the scenes, you have the method to bring in guests, that's the big part. And then from there, flipping on the camera, being able to talk with you, being able to set up our guests, that's a little bit easier once you have everything set up. And so I'm so appreciative of everyone's time. But that's the cool thing is we'll have a 1-year anniversary coming up later this month, but I plan to keep the show at least 2 days a week going on into the 2021-22 academic year, so it should be a lot of fun as well. That said, we still have one more guest to get to when we return on LCPioneers.com live. We'll talk to the head baseball coach of Lewis and Clark, Matt Kosderka, as their team gets set for competition coming up over the course of the coming weeks. We're excited to talk about what the preparation has been like and get a glimpse into the 2021 Lewis and Clark baseball team. We'll do that when we come back on LCPioneers.com live, presented by PiosStream.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus.
What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the manor house. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.
I'm Casey Jones, and I teach a range of classes, general chemistry, organic chemistry, and also some advanced classes. And I have a research lab that currently I have 4 students working with me as part of the Rogers program. The summer experience is a way to get really deeply involved in the science that is here and be able to start to define what might be what you want to do next. So the brown bag gives our students a chance to explain their research and really show the context and the application of what they're doing to a very broad range of students and faculty.
It's interesting to be able to communicate to other scientists what your work is, and it forces you to learn how to talk about your subject so that not only experts in your field can understand it, but others can understand it as well, which I just believe is a good life skill.
To talk about your research in a way that anybody can understand it really is a valuable experience, and it's something that you don't get a lot of practice for except in these contexts, because oftentimes you're giving a presentation to a classroom filled with people who know basically the same things that you do, but in a brown bag, you have to be able to explain and provide motivation for everything that you're working on and why it's important and why it's relevant to be studying.
You're watching lcpioneers.com live, presented by PiosStream, as we continue our conversation on this Thursday. Thank you for being with us on Facebook Live, and you can find all of our past shows at youtube.com/lcpios. I am Ryan Goff. I'm the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark, and we're excited now to be joined by the head baseball coach of Lewis and Clark's baseball program. That is Matt Kosderka joining us on the show. Coach Kos, it's good to catch up with you. I mentioned this as we're getting you set up prior to coming on air. Haven't had a chance to talk to you on the show since May, although we did get a chance to converse with your assistant, Eric Del Prado. So it's been quite a while. It's an opportunity for us to kind of summarize what the last year has been like for you and for your team. Let's start there, dating back to the cancellation of last season. Kind of just give us a summary of what things have been like for you and your program.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. Obviously, it was super disappointing to have the season end the way it did last year, especially with the momentum we just built coming off the George Fox Series win. Devastating for the seniors, especially. No way that we wanted to have their career end that way, but we tried to do the best we could to really refocus our guys. We focused on academics right away. That was our goal. And our guy did an amazing job. They had a 3.6 GPA with having to go home in the middle of the semester, which is amazing. And they continued that momentum over throughout the rest of the summer and into the fall and now into the spring. There's definitely been some challenges, whether it's the pandemic or whether it's fires or ice storms or whatever it is. There's definitely been a lot of challenges, but this has been an awesome opportunity for our guys to prepare for the future. We talk about this as the ultimate test of mental toughness. And it also is a good example for them that, if they really want something in their lives down the road, it's not going to be given to them. They have to work, they have to sacrifice, and they've done a great job of that to be able to get back out there, and they're very appreciative of being able to get back out on the field this year.
One of the things I've admired about your program since you got to Palatine Hill was the fall ball and the way that you approached fall ball. So I'm curious, as you got into fall 2020 and we're looking ahead to likely having a season in spring 2021, were you able to run things the same way as you usually do? Or if not, how was it different for your program?
It was interesting. There were some things that were the same. There were some things that obviously were different. We had to obviously space our guys out a little bit more. Which actually led to more individual attention. So it actually worked out, I thought, pretty well. We would have half our team come in at one time and break those into two groups. And so we got a lot of individual attention with our guys. They actually got probably more reps than they've ever gotten in the fall. And then also the NCAA changed the rules this year where it wasn't based on number of weeks, it was based on number of days. And that allowed us to have 25 fall workouts where we usually have 16. So it allowed us to not only have our normal fall, but also to spend some time with our guys on a more individual basis, working on the things that we saw during the fall and we needed them to improve into the spring. So it really worked out the best it possibly could be. And, I think it was very beneficial for our guys. So I have no complaints about how the fall went.
You discussed, Coach, the difficulty for the 2020 seniors, right? So as we switch to the spring 2021 season, let's kind of spotlight the incoming group of seniors, right? What does this class bring to your program? Describe those individuals for the people who don't know much about them yet.
Yeah, it's the last class of guys that came here, not for me, that I didn't recruit, but I can honestly say that all of these are guys that I would have recruited. Great young men who are going to go on to do amazing things off the field. And on the field, they've been a huge part of really building what we've been able to build in the last 4 years and continue to build. Obviously we had struggled before I got here. We still have some struggles. We're still working through those things, but they've really kind of changed the whole mentality of the program in terms of work ethic, in terms of taking pride in what you do, in terms of really believing the things that you need to believe to be successful as individuals in a program. And so we're really excited to see what they accomplish this year. We're very grateful that they get an opportunity to get out and play this year as well.
And then, of course, with that comes the incoming class, right? Describe the incoming class of 2020-21. What did they bring to your team?
I always like to say that every incoming class is the most talented incoming class we've had. But I think they're definitely right up there. And I think they opened a lot of eyes amongst our returning guys right away. We have a couple guys like Luke Bass, Jacob Giamacci, John Delaney, who are all hitters who all have the ability to not only be solid hitters, but also hit the ball out of the park. And I think that opened a lot of eyes right away. But we also have some guys on the mound, and Brett Pearson, Tal Jones, Anthony Clarisi, and now Tyler Shimabakuro, who was gone over the fall, but has come in the spring. I think they've opened a lot of eyes amongst our own guys and our coaches. And so it's been great to see them. And they've done a great job of really fitting into our program and just helping us continue to be on the track and continue to move the train forward like we need to.
We're talking to the head coach of Lewis and Clark baseball, Matt Kosderka, on lcpioneers.com live. Our second conversation with Coach Kos and the first since May. So, Nan, we get to see baseball coming up on the 13th of this month. Give us a glimpse into what you're excited about for the upcoming season.
Like I said, I think obviously we finished last season, even though it was disappointing how it ended. We finished on great deal of momentum, having taken 2 out of 3 games against George Fox, who was the best team in the conference at the time. And I think for us, that was really the opportunity to, for the first time in the 4 years I've been here, believe that we can play with anybody. And so I'm really excited to see if that momentum can carry over, but I'm also excited to see our guys continue to grow. I think they've done a lot of great work since that time. They've obviously gotten better as individuals and as people, and they've helped to create a more tight-knit unit amongst our team. I think that's going to be really helpful during the season as well. And if you looked at what happened last week with the teams that have already played, it's a very wide open conference this year. And so we're right in the middle of the things, I think, with everybody. Obviously, we're a little bit behind because we don't have preseason games, but I think once we hit the ground running, we're going to be right in the mix with everybody. So that's super exciting to see if we can continue to progress.
And right behind you, you have that picture of Houston Sports Complex. The We Believe project is still very much alive and active as well. I want you to talk about the project in just a bit, but that said, opportunities start at home, and the way that Houston is now, you've put in you've just put in so much work for that place. I even went back the other day and noticed you've revamped some of the bleacher area right down there. So describe the venue as it is right now and how excited you are to start the season at home.
Well, one thing I think it's important for our program, Ryan, is, one of our pillars is pride, and taking pride in what you own. And I would say our facility is probably behind a lot of other schools in some things, but right up there with a lot of other schools and other things. And so even though the Houston project and the We Believe project is something that we're very excited about, we're very putting a lot of time into really making come to fruition. At the same time, I don't want to sit back and wait. I want to make sure that I'm taking as much pride in what we have right now. We had some time, obviously, this winter with our guys being gone a little bit longer for me to do some things. We have revamped the bleachers a little bit. We've added some signage to our field to make it look a little bit better, some extra padding, some extra sheds and those kind of things to try to do the little things that we can do within our control, which is, again, another one of our pillars, control the controllables. And so I'm trying to set a good example for our guys and do the things that are going to help entice them to, be more prideful in their facility. Unfortunately, we don't have fans coming this year to see some of the things that we've done, but regardless, we want to make sure if there's something we can do to improve our program, we're going to do that.
No, and again, there's few panoramas that are better looking than from home plate at Houston Sports Complex out your baseball field. So excited when we can welcome fans back, but that is a good point for the 2020-21 academic year. We won't have spectators, and we'll do our best through PiosStream and staff limitations to be able to bring you as good of a broadcast as we possibly can to share those moments with you, including some of the photos that we can bring out too. You have this coaching staff. I think I would be remiss if I didn't give you an opportunity to talk about them because I love the staff that you've assembled for baseball at Lewis and Clark. What are some of the assets that you have coaching alongside?
Yeah, I've been extremely fortunate to have the people that I've had in the last couple of years to help me out, even the guys who were here before and are not here anymore. But my current staff is not only good friends of mine, but great people who are going to be focused on making our kids not only better baseball players, but better people. And that's really what's important to me as a head coach and a leader of the program. And so when you have guys like Bill Allen, who's an alum, Eric Del Prado, who's my assistant coach, who puts an amazing amount of time into our guys, Coach Turpin, Coach Topalm, who are, again, guys who have lives and families and jobs off campus and still come and spend as much time with our kids as they can for really, to be honest with you, they're losing money to come here. They're paying to be coaches here, but they love what they do, not only just the game of baseball, but making our guys better and having those guys to be able to delegate things to and know that they can take the things that I give them and run with it and do a great job has been amazing. And our guys have definitely benefited from that, and so has our program.
All right, you mentioned it's a wide open conference. Whitman's the first opponent coming in. Have we been scouting, thinking heavily about the first opponent? What do you expect out of the Blues when they show up?
Yeah, I would say, we've been probably a little bit more focused on ourselves. The first couple of weeks, we'll definitely get into Whitman a little bit more next week. They were one of the programs in the conference that had a number of guys come back for a fifth year and take advantage of the extra year of eligibility. Their shortstop, third baseman, one of their best pitchers is back. And they always have a really good incoming freshman class as well. They do a great job there. Brian's a great coach and a great guy who also is very similar to us, where he's really focused on building great people. And so it's always a challenge against them. I love playing against them because they're going to compete regardless of what their skill or talent level is. They're coming off 2 years ago, almost winning a regional tournament against the eventual national champion in Chapman. So they believe they can beat anybody. So it's going to be an awesome test for us. We didn't get to see them last year outside of the one preseason game. So it's a little bit of, unknown because we haven't seen them in a while, but the same for them and us. and we're going to go out there and try and play our game and, see what happens.
I have to tell you, it's fun to do the show and actually ask a question about an upcoming opponent. We haven't had a chance to do that with lcpioneers.com live,
Yeah.
and on the 13th of March, we will do so, the first of a 4-game series against Whitman. Thank you so much, Coach Kosderka. Appreciate your time, and good luck in this upcoming year.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
That's Matt Kosderka joining us on lcpioneers.com live. You're looking at March 13th, March 14th. The first day is going to be an 11-2 split, and then you have a 12-3 on the Sunday following. You can find all the information on our website, lcpioneers.com. But that hit me just as we were sitting here talking. We haven't done this show with an upcoming competition talking to the coach that is going to have that team in competition. It's happening. It's happening tonight. We didn't have Coach Hayes on, but we had Coach Kayao yesterday, the assistant coach, talking yesterday with the volleyball program debuting tonight, Northwest Conference competition, hosting Linfield at 7 o'clock at Pamplin Sports Center. We will have that broadcast on lcpioneers.com/PiosStream. So I say that I guess clearly we have in the last 2 days, 2 coaches, last 3 days, I should say, as Coach Kayao was on Tuesday's show. But it just kind of dawned on me, like, we're going to be able to do that now with you on the show, previewing opponents for coaches that are on after a competition. We'll have a chance to break down past games. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so we are eager to have everyone back and to hold competition as safely as we possibly can, certainly with the health and safety of the student athletes and the coaches at the top of our mind. And of course, lcpioneers.com/COVID is where you can get the latest updates pertaining to COVID-19 and Lewis and Clark athletics. So be sure to bookmark that, as we'll have information available. There are likely to be schedule changes over the course of the year. So again, bookmark lcpioneers.com. There's a games tab right at the top, and we try to make notes as well when things do change, like try to let you know what times might be modified, or if the dates of competition flip-flop, sites, etc. We try to make those notes on there to give you an idea of how recently that change has been made, because sometimes things might come in last second. And I appreciate all the staff at Lewis and Clark, athletic director Mark Petrock, associate AD Sharon Sexton, who puts in a ton of time organizing the schedules and getting everything ready. Appreciate all the communication and work that everybody in the department's doing to make sure we can keep you informed, and this show is certainly part of that plan. So to Kendall for joining us in the first half, and to Coach Kosderka joining us in the second half. Big thanks to you watching. Edgar, absolutely. Competition tonight, watching Lewis and Clark volleyball. It'll start at 7 o'clock Pacific time. It'll be a one-camera broadcast, but we'll try to give you as much detail as we can. Again, limited staff of what we can do, so it won't be like a normal PiosStream year, certainly in spring 2021. But that said, we'll get to see competition, and we'll have an opportunity to watch the Pios compete starting tonight. After yesterday's women's soccer debut, the first counting contest for Coach Tercey's team, a 4-1 loss to George Fox. Maddie Pastoris got her first ever collegiate goal. It was a really cool moment yesterday during the course of that game, and they'll be home on Sunday at Griswold Stadium to host George Fox as well. Be sure to find that game at 3 o'clock. Tennis gets started this weekend. Track and field has a competition this weekend. You can see all of the upcoming events at lcpioneers.com/this week, so be sure to check that out on our website. Until we see you again on Tuesday next week for another edition of the show. Again, we are Tuesdays and Thursdays now at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. I'm Ryan Goff again. Thank you so much for having fun with us. We will see you again for more of this show. Be sure to go to YouTube and find us there, youtube.com/LCPios, to subscribe and watch any of our past shows if you miss anything during the course of the show. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds. Me being an econ major and my two group mates being chemistry majors, we really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.